Were you ever present, Mr. Bett, for any conversations amongst Ms. Heard and her friends?
I was.
Can you describe any particular one that stands out to you?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading calls for hearsay.
All right.
Well, to the extent, Your Honor, we're offering Ms. Heard's statements, it's not hearsay.
All right. Well, if you can lay a foundation to that, let's see. Go.
Do you recall any specific instances, Mr. Bett, where you heard Ms. Heard say something to her friends?
I do.
Okay. Can you describe one of those situations?
Yes. The first one, I was taking her from Mr. Depp's property to her apartment in the south end of the city that I believe Mr. Depp was paying for. She was sitting next to me in the vehicle. She was talking to a girlfriend or a friend where they were talking about another male. And she says to the friend, girlfriend, whoever she was talking to, you know, all men are idiots, you know, you shouldn't trust that guy. And then she turned to me and she said, you know, sorry, Sean, not you, I didn't mean that. And I just shrugged it off like it's not a big deal.
Do you remember approximately when that conversation took place?
I would say probably maybe 2012 or 13 perhaps even a little bit sooner than that. It was a long time ago.
And over the years of Ms. Heard's and Mr. Depp's relationships, did you have an opportunity to observe how the relationship evolved?
I did.
And
Well, I'll just see what the next question is. That's fine.
did you notice any changes in the relationship between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
Objection, vague, foundation, relevance, and leading.
All right. Well, I'll allow it if you could get a timeline set in there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you notice any changes in the relationship between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard after the initial stages of them beginning to engage in a romantic relationship?
I did.
And would you please describe those changes that you observed?
Well, I noticed they went from being that loving, almost like high school couple where they were very giddy towards each other. He was very happy, she was very happy, to they started to argue. They started to argue periodically, and then the arguing started to progress more and more and more. And it was always taking place because, you know, Ms. Heard would start this argument.
Did you ever observe Ms. Heard drink alcohol?
I did.
How often?
It just varied. There would be, you know, some days when I was working that I would see her. There would be other days I didn't see her or she was out of town working. So it just really depended on when she was around. And when she was around, for the most part, you know, she was drinking. You know, sometimes I'd see a glass in her hand and sometimes I'd see her, you know, have 2 glasses if I was in the presence of her and Mr. Depp, obviously.
Based on your observations, did it ever appear that Ms. Heard was intoxicated?
There were times when I went into the penthouse or we were at the Hollywood estate and, you know, based on my training experience in law enforcement, I could tell she was, you know, slightly intoxicated.
Oh, excuse me.
That's kind of getting into the realm of expert testimony. He's not a designated expert.
All right.
Perhaps we can have him answer the question without any citing to any experience in law enforcement, Mr. Bett?
I'll just sustain the objection. Let's go to the next question.
Okay, understood. Do you recall observing any arguments between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
Several.
Can you tell the jury about one that comes to mind?
There was an incident, for example, I just happened to be on the floor of their penthouse, which is on the top floor of this building. I was outside by the pool area reading a book, and when I was walking back past their door, I could hear shouting. I could hear her voice shouting, you know, at a very high pitch. So I didn't rush in right away or anything. I just kind of stood by the door. He was, you know, speaking with her, and then the voices, you know, the shouting dissipated, and then, you know, there was music playing, and then they started talking. So I kind of just stood by the door briefly, and then I went into another section of the penthouse floor.
Do you recall approximately the time frame of that argument?
As far as the year or how long it lasted?
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Bett. The year.
That could have been perhaps 2012, 2013, maybe a little thereafter.
Did Ms. Heard ever confide in you about her relationship with Mr. Depp?
Briefly.
Do you recall her saying anything in particular about her relationship with Mr. Depp?
There was a couple occasions. There was one occasion in which they had an argument at his West Hollywood address. Johnny told me, you know, just take her downtown to the penthouse so she can relax and cool off. As we were driving downtown, you know, she was crying. This was at the point when the arguing was taking place quite frequently. And I was telling her, I said, Amber, you know, this can't continue. You guys are either going to kill each other or you're going to be in jail. And, you know, with tears and everything, she says, but I love him and I'm not going to lose him. And I says, but you guys can't keep doing this. So we eventually got to the downtown apartments. You know, she said, thank you. I dropped her off. And then I went back to the West Hollywood address.
What did you mean by, you know, this can't continue when you told Ms. Heard that?
The constant arguing and bickering and so forth, because as I said, it was slowly progressing and, you know, it was just going to turn out bad eventually.
I believe you testified earlier that you observed many arguments between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard. Do you recall anything that Ms. Heard said to Mr. Depp while they were arguing?
There was an incident because, as I said, the arguing progressed over and over as the years continued. He would text me when I was working saying, you know.
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for hearsay.
All right, I'll sustain that objection if you want to.
Mr. Bett, if you could just focus on what Ms. Heard, you overheard Ms. Heard say while observing arguments between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard.
I overheard her saying to him, he's a fat ass, fuck you, Johnny, and you too, Sean, at one time when, you know, she went to throw a water bottle or a plastic cup down the stairs and it bounced kind of in Johnny's direction, but I ended up getting him and we, you know, got out of there as soon as possible.
Did you ever see Ms. Heard throw anything other than a water bottle?
It was a water bottle or a coffee cup. It was something plastic.
Other than a water bottle or a plastic cup, did you ever see Ms. Heard throw anything else?
No, other than what he told me when she threw a broken bottle and sliced his finger. And
Sir, I'll sustain the objection. The jury will strike that testimony. Please just answer the question asked, and when there's an objection, do not speak, okay?
Right, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
After observing several arguments between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, what happened next?
As far as a time frame, well, as I said, the arguing, when it would continue, we would always, you know, I'd put him in the car and we'd drive back to his West Hollywood address, at which point it just depended on the week or the day or the month. You know, they would reconcile within hours, or it might take a day where he would stay overnight at his West Hollywood address, and then, you know, I would take him back the next day, and, you know, they would reconcile by, you know, talking, and she would have, you know, candles lit, or, you know, a bottle of wine open with glasses, and, you know, within, you know, certain evenings, you know, I'd get a text message from her, you know, asking me to go pick up dinner at local restaurants they frequented.
Did you ever see any violence between Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp?
No.
Other than the occasion when you saw Ms. Heard throw something plastic in Mr. Depp's direction. Did you ever see Ms. Heard hit Mr. Depp?
No.
Did you ever see any physical injuries on Ms. Heard?
I didn't.
Did you ever see any physical injuries on Ms. Heard on occasions after Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard argued?
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation.
All right, if you want to lay a time frame to that?
Absolutely. Sure. On the occasions that you witnessed Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp argue, after that, did you ever see any physical injuries on Ms. Heard?
That's the same question.
Okay,
All right,
move on.
okay.